eigentlich schon erschütterlich. Also sollte so nicht vorkommen.
Er habe geglaubt, sie würde als Prostituierte arbeiten. Der sogenannte Ehrenmord löste bundesweites Entsetzen und eine Diskussion über die Integration von Einwanderern auf.
It was 1994 when the Obeidi family fled the city of Mazar-e-Sharif in northern Afghanistan, a city that, by then, had already been torn apart. Warlords, religious factions, everything collapsing all at once. Ahmad Sober Obeidi, the oldest son, was just 10. His little sister, Morsal, she was only 3. Their father, he used to fly military aircraft for the old communist regime in Afghanistan. But once the Soviets pulled out and the Mujahideen took over, he knew what that meant. There was no place for them anymore. So they left. They ended up in Hamburg, Germany, a place they didn't know at all. But maybe, just maybe, it could be a fresh start, somewhere safe, somewhere to rebuild. But what they found wasn't freedom. It was something else. Pressure, silence, and eventually, murder. Morsal grew up like any other kid in Hamburg. She spoke German, went to school, made friends. But behind closed doors, things were different. Her family still followed strict, traditional rules, especially when it came to her, what she wore, how she acted. Makeup? Off limits. Boys? Absolutely not. Tight jeans, Western music, selfies, all of that was seen as rebellion. To her brother Ahmad, this wasn't just a teenage phase. This was shameful. And in his mind, shame had consequences. Morsal just wanted to be like the other girls at school. That's all. She liked music, clothes, hanging out. She wore eyeliner. She made friends. She wanted to fit in. But with every step she took toward freedom, the risk grew. Ahmad was in his 20s by then, and already known to the police. Assault, theft, robbery. He wasn't even that religious. But when it came to his idea of family honor, he drew the line. He basically started watching her, interrogating her, asking who she was texting, where she was going, what she was wearing, trying to control her life. By the time she was 15, things had gotten so bad at home that she was sent to a shelter. More than once, and while she was there, she told them everything. About the violence, the threats. But unfortunately, she kept going back, to the same house, to the same fear. And then came something even worse. Her family decided to send her back to Afghanistan, alone, for 9 months. The reason? To correct her, to remind her who she was, or at least who she was supposed to be. And when she came back to Hamburg, nothing had changed, but Morsal didn't stop fighting. She wanted to finish school, to make friends and live like everyone else. It was May 15th, 2008. Morsal was only 16. That day, she got a message from her cousin, Mohammed. Just a casual one. He wanted just to meet up, just talk, he said. So she agreed, of course she did. But what she didn't know was that Ahmed had asked him to send that message, and that her brother was already nearby, waiting. They met near a McDonald's, right by the Berliner Tor station. It was a bit dark, and then Ahmed stepped out. He didn't really say much. He just suddenly pulled out a knife and started stabbing. 23 times. Her arms, her back, her stomach. He cut through her lungs, and her heart. Somehow, she was still alive when help arrived. Barely. She was taken to the hospital, but her injuries were beyond anything they could fix. She died on the way with massive blood loss. And to this day, no one really knows who called for help. Maybe a stranger saw something. There's no really official record that confirms it, but after the stabbing, Mohammed went to the police and told them everything, and also gave them Ahmad's name. The next day, police showed up at Ahmad Obeidi's home. He didn't try to run or anything. He didn't even deny it, because in his mind, he did what had to be done.
Now, once the trial started, Ahmed told the judges something that, honestly, didn't shock anyone, but still hit hard. He said what he did wasn't murder, well, at least not to him. To him, it was necessary, something that had to be done. He stated that his sister had, in his view, turned away from her family, dressed inappropriately in public, and worked as a prostitute. And in his eyes, that justified everything. But yeah, the court didn't see it like that, not even close. So, fast forward to February 13, 2009. That's when the Hamburg Regional Court gave their final verdict. And they didn't go light on him. This wasn't manslaughter. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't some misunderstanding. It was murder. They cited Heimtücke, which means treacherous intent. He lured her there. And niedere Beweggründe, which translates to low or base motives. The so-called honor was nothing but ego and control. Ahmad was sentenced to life in prison. Now, his defense tried to appeal, hoping they could reduce the charge or shave time off the sentence. But Germany's Federal Court of Justice wasn't having it. They looked at everything again and let the original sentence stand. Outside the courtroom, the story was already everywhere. The case had gripped the country. Germany was forced to face a painful question. How had this happened? Morsal had reached out. She had stayed in shelters. She had told social services about the pressure, and yet no one stopped it. For women's rights groups and immigrant advocacy networks, the case became a symbol of how culture can become a cage and how silence, especially from institutions, can be deadly.
Now, back in Hamburg, Morsal's school held a memorial. Her classmates left notes, flowers, lit candles. Some described her as bright, funny, someone who wanted to feel included. On internet forums like Reddit, users expressed their opinions. Really sad story. Dad flees Afghanistan because of the Taliban, only to have his son commit the same acts as them. He wants honor? Let the name Ahmad Obeidi live forever in dishonor, infamy, and shame. He's a disgrace, a grotesque affront to all older brothers and to all humans. A child killer. Ugh. Sorry, I'm disgusted. I'll stop. Some users even made comments about the religion aspect. To be fair, the brother seemed pretty fucked up to begin with, having a long criminal record before this happened. Religion made him worse, but he would probably still be a worthless POS without it. Religion is almost always just a tool used by someone to push their own agenda. In this case, someone with a screwed-up head wanted to create a false sense of moral superiority by using religion to redeem his honor. I think this honor killing was more due to cultural influence than religion. I realize that one informs the other, but truly religious Muslims don't hang around in bars getting drunk all the time. And it's exactly like what the judges believe. The judges didn't see it as a religious or cultural misunderstanding. They saw it for what it was: a cold, calculated killing. A brother punishing his sister for having a voice. A life lost to the illusion of honor.
If you just looked at the footage without knowing anything, you'd probably think it was nothing. Just two guys standing around at a Berlin train station, dragging a suitcase, phones in hand, waiting for their train like everybody else. But that suitcase, it wasn't empty. Inside was their sister, wrapped in tape, throat slit. Her name was Mariam. She was 34, had 2 kids, her own apartment, a job, a life she'd worked to build. She came to Germany back in 2013 as an asylum seeker from Afghanistan. Came with her husband, her brothers, and the rest of the family. And over time, she started finding her own way. She got divorced, she met someone new, and stopped wearing the headscarf. And that was it. That was enough. Her brothers, Yusuf and Mahdi, didn't approve of any of it. They told her she wasn't allowed to date, that she shouldn't go out alone, and she was acting way too Western. And on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, the brothers lured her into a Berlin apartment. They told her something to get her to come, and she believed them. But once she stepped inside, everything changed. They restrained her, covered her mouth, and then they took her life. She literally had no chance to escape or call for help. And after it was done, they placed Mariam inside a large suitcase, one they had recently bought, deliberately, for this exact reason. At 5:52 p.m. that same day, they were spotted on CCTV at the Berlin Suitcase train station, calmly walking with that suitcase through the terminal and lifting it onto an ICE train headed south, toward Donauwörth, where Yusuf lived. It was broad daylight. The platform was busy, and there they were, moving her body across the station like it was nothing. According to investigators, they'd first taken a taxi to the station with the suitcase in the trunk. Cell phone data, surveillance footage, and multiple witness statements would later confirm the entire route. But at that point, no one knew what was inside. Now, Mariam's body wasn't found right away. It actually took nearly 2 weeks for police to piece it all together, going through travel logs, tracing phone pings, talking to anyone who might have seen them. And then, finally, on July 23rd, a search team located the burial site. Her body was found hidden near a rubble field on a forested hillside, deep in the Bavarian countryside. She'd been placed in a shallow grave, right on the edge of a disused dumping ground, about 30 kilometers from Donauwörth. The brothers were arrested on August 4th, 2021. Berlin police later issued a statement confirming they were taken into custody on suspicion of murder and of transporting the body by train, and they clarified that Mariam had been killed on July 13th, the same day the suitcase was moved to Bavaria. The trial began in early 2022 and stretched on for more than 40 days. 52 witnesses testified, and in February 2023, both brothers were convicted of murder. They were sentenced to life in prison. The judge said their actions were rooted in what he called archaic moral and honor codes. He said it was clear that in their eyes, Mariam had become less valuable, simply because she was a woman who made her own choices. And you remember what the court said in Morsel's case? Yeah, here it was the same thing. The verdict cited base motives, niedrige Beweggründe, one of the defining factors for a life sentence under German criminal law. And then there was the suitcase. Remember how they'd just bought it? Well, during the trial, prosecutors revealed something dark. Before the murder, one of the brothers had Googled the phrase Koffer bis 70 Kilogramm Berlin, in English, suitcase 70 kilograms Berlin. They were literally searching for something big enough to carry her. That search ended up submitted as digital forensic evidence. In the end, Mariam's death shocked Germany, not just because of what was done to her, but because of how methodical it all was. The footage, the planning, the secrecy, all of it tied to this twisted belief that her independence made her shameful. And as her name was added to the growing list of women killed under the name of so-called honor, there wasn't much left to debate. The judge told the brothers clearly and without hesitation
What you call honor, we call despicable. It was early in the morning, June 30th, 2009, when a lockkeeper at Kingston Mills noticed something odd. A black Nissan Sentra, almost fully submerged beneath the cold waters of the Rideau Canal. Divers were called in, and once they pulled the car from the water, they found 4 bodies inside. 19-year-old Zainab Shafir, 17-year-old Sahar Shafir, 13-year-old Geeti Shafir, and 52-year-old Rona Amir Mohammed. Now, that same afternoon, their father, Mohammed Shafir, their mother, Tuba Yahya, and their brother Hamed walked into a police station to report the girls missing. But to understand how that car became a crime scene, we need to rewind. The Shafirs were originally from Afghanistan. They'd lived in Dubai for years before immigrating to Montreal in 2007. Rona followed sometime later, listed on documents as a relative. But in truth, she was Shafir's first wife, part of a polygamous marriage. Inside the home, tension was constant. Rona kept a diary, writing about her life like she was invisible, describing abuse, fear, and how she had been reduced to little more than a servant. And Zainab? She was in love. In February 2008, she sent an email to the boy she was secretly seeing at school. She warned him to stay alert, especially around her brother. She wrote, "Firstly, be aware of my brother. If sometimes want to talk, come in the library, and if my bro is around, act like complete stranger." Then she added, "I'll come near your locker. Then I'll talk if my bro is not around, because I don't want to give him the slightest idea that we are friends." Like, she wasn't just hiding a relationship. She was living in fear of being caught for having any relationship at all. Now, the daughters clashed with the house rules constantly. Rules about what they could wear, who they could talk to, and whether dating was even allowed. In April 2009, Zainab fled to a women's shelter. There were multiple 911 calls from the home. In May, she married her boyfriend, but that didn't last long. The family pressured her into annulling it. Still, she held on to the feeling. In June, she sent him an email that read, "Well, one thing I'm really happy about is that it was my dream to marry you and I did it. So now, even if something happens to us, like dead, I won't die without my dream being fulfilled." And then, things escalated. On June 20th, someone used the family computer to search "where to commit a murder." That's the exact phrase. 2 days later, on June 22nd, Mohammed Shafir bought a used black Nissan Sentra, the same one later found in the canal. On June 24th, the family made a stop at Kingston Mills while on a trip to Niagara Falls. Then, on June 29th, they left Niagara around 8 p.m. to head back to Montreal. But instead of going straight through, they booked rooms at a motel in Kingston. The manager would later testify that he saw Shafir and Hamed leave the motel in the family SUV that night, and that he never saw them come back. Then, around 1:36 a.m., Sahar's cell phone pinged a tower near Kingston Mills, placing at least one of the victims right at the site where the car would be found. Just hours later, at 7:55 a.m., Hamed called police in Montreal, saying he had crashed the Lexus SUV into a barrier in a nearly empty parking lot. But that story didn't sit right. Prosecutors later said that call was staged, meant to cover up damage from something else entirely. And sure enough, just over an hour later, back in Kingston, the lockworker found the Nissan. By 12:30 p.m., the remaining Shafirs were sitting in a police station, filing a missing persons report. They told officers that Zainab had taken the car late at night and that the others must have gone with her. But detectives weren't convinced. Because, you see, the path into the water wasn't an easy one. The car had to be guided precisely between a lock gate and a concrete beam. It looked intentional. And when police divers reviewed the underwater footage, more things didn't make sense. None of the seat belts were fastened. The car's ignition was off, headlights off, gear in first, driver's side window wide open. Even the seats were reclined. It didn't feel like a joyride gone wrong. It felt staged. With permission from the family's liaison, Kingston police inspected the Lexus SUV. And when they matched damage on the Lexus with fragments found near the locks, a collision reconstruction expert from OPP testified that the SUV had pushed the Nissan into the canal. He even called the Nissan the instrument of death in court, explaining how the evidence showed it had been shoved into the water, not driven. Then came the ruse. On July 18th, police invited Shafia, Tuba, and Hamed back to Kingston, said they just wanted to update them on the investigation. But what the family didn't know was that their minivan had been secretly bugged. And once inside, detectives told them a lie, that a security camera had captured what happened near the locks. That's when the masks dropped. On the recordings, Mohammed Shafir said things like, "Even if they hoist me up onto the gallows, nothing is more dear to me than my honor." He compared his daughters to prostitutes. He said they had shamed him. And just like that, the case broke open.
On July 22nd, all three, Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamed, were arrested. Their trial began in October 2011. The Crown presented everything: the cell tower records, the diary entries, the 911 calls, the secret recordings, the damage to both cars. And the story it told wasn't random. It wasn't a tragic accident. It was planned. The pathologist who examined the bodies said all four died by drowning, but also noted signs of trauma to the head, injuries that didn't match a crash or impact with soft surfaces. They were likely hurt before the car entered the water, which supported the theory that this was never meant to look real, just believable enough. On January 29, 2012, the jury delivered its verdict. All three were found guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder. The judge called it a twisted idea of honor, one that led to 4 lives lost. Each of them, Shafia, Tuba, and Hamed, received life sentences, with no possibility of parole for 25 years. They appealed, and they failed. The convictions were upheld. This is part of a new series we've just started, and we truly hope to see you again for the next one. If you've got thoughts on any of the cases we covered, or just something you want to say, feel free to drop a comment below. We read them. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. That way you won't miss the next story. Thanks for watching.